So how has the public health impacted the health in our family? So we'll start with Sandy's pregnancies. Sandy's attended all the prenatal classes at our health unit for each child. Sandy was nervous about delivering a baby and being a new mom. She heard about the prenatal classes that would give her the information she needs to feel more comfortable and confident. She and Robert attended all the 5 evening classes. They made new friends and looked forward to getting together with them after their babies were born. Prenatal classes, they are offered throughout the year in Simcoe and in Caledonia, providing education and practice on topics such as labor and delivery, breathing techniques, and breastfeeding. Sandy was enrolled in a Healthy Baby and Healthy Children program. Sandy and Robert babies were delivered at Norfolk General Hospital. The health unit Healthy Babies, Healthy Children postpartum screen was completed at hospital and sent to the health unit when Sandy and baby were discharged. As soon as the health unit received the screen, a public health nurse called Sandy, offering support with the breastfeeding and checking in with her to see if she would like a home visit. Sandy breastfed all her 3 children. So some of the highlights for our program are: so we have 175 pregnant mothers and their support people. They attended health unit prenatal classes. There are 80 mothers who registered for online program. And for 2018, that is September 30th, we had around 694 prenatal, postpartum, and childhood screens. And in 2017, these screens were 1,030. So just to give you a background, like in Haldimand and Norfolk, we are having around 1,050 deliveries per year. So Sandy and Robert become parents. Sandy and Robert, they are overwhelmed with their new responsibilities with their first child. Sandy just wants to stay in bed and cannot stop crying. The doctor is concerned that there may be some issues with their new baby and that Sandy may have had postpartum depression. Sandy initially didn't want the public health nurse to come for a visit, but the warm voice on the other end of the phone changed her mind. The public health nurse and a family home visitor stay connected with the family, offering support to Sandy with her physical and mental health, providing breastfeeding support, referring Sandy to community mental health services, and providing tips and education to support their child's healthy growth and development, as well as coaching and role modeling healthy attachment and positive parenting techniques. The birth of Sandy's and Robert's next child went smoothly, and both parents felt confident in their ability to parent. Sandy had some trouble with breastfeeding. A public health nurse called and provided breastfeeding support over the phone, offering to visit at home. The public health nurse helped Sandy with positioning the baby to the breast and improving the latch. Sandy was then able to continue to successfully breastfeed. Sandy knew if she needed help, she could stop by at the Well Baby Drop-In and see a public health nurse for an extra help for breastfeeding, growth milestones, and parenting. Well Baby Drop-ins are offered weekly by the health unit at the Early On Centers in Simcoe, Caledonia, Dunville, and monthly at the Early On Center in Delhi. So as we have provided you with the bags, so I want you to open your bags, and there is a folder there with a health promotion tag. This one. So there are many resource materials for different topics, but I'll be discussing only about breastfeeding today. So it has a tag of health promotion. So if you open it, so there is a resource material about breastfeeding guide. So as you all know, breastfeeding, it's acknowledged universally, and it is one of the simplest methods to decrease infant mortality and morbidity, not only in developing countries, but in some of the high affluent countries like Canada. Despite strong recommendations from the World Health Organization and some of our national bodies, the breastfeeding rates, they are still low, especially at 6 months. For example, according to Statistics Canada, in 2011 and 12, breastfeeding initiation rate, that is discharge at hospital, it was around 89%. But within 6 months, for exclusive breastfeeding, it dropped to 26%. There are many factors, but one of the greatest factors, they are lack of knowledge about breastfeeding techniques and the decreased supply of milk. So if you go through this resource, it has an excellent guidelines how you can overcome all these barriers. So our community public health nurses and family home visitors, they are helping new moms to succeed in their breastfeeding. So some of the highlights for our program are, like in 2017, we conducted 1,900 visits with 250 families. Annually, more than 300 new moms, they are called by public health nurses to provide breastfeeding support. And 160 well baby drop-ins, they are offered each year, giving parents convenient location to get help. So Sandy and Robert become parents. Robert was a regular smoker for over 10 years. With the birth of their second child, Robert loved watching his daughter Anita help out with a new baby. She imitated how her mom cared for Jacob. On the other hand, Robert has become worried seeing Anita imitate some of his own behaviors, mainly smoking with her crayons. He had been contemplating quitting when the doctor advised them that Jacob has asthma and exposure to second and third-hand smoke should be avoided. When the doctor offered to refer him to the health unit quit clinic, Robert was ready, excited, and a little nervous. He was relieved to learn that the nicotine replacement therapy was provided free of charge. And while Robert was shy going into his first appointment, he left feeling confident. After only 9 weeks of counseling and nicotine replacement therapy, Robert made his first quit attempt. He relapsed 2 weeks later, but was supported by the public health nurse and made another quit attempt just a week later. Robert has been smoke-free for over a decade now. So some of our highlights are, like 21.5% of adults, they are smokers in Haldimand and Norfolk as compared to 18.8% in Ontario. And in our program, 109 quit clients with 496 appointments. And 102 residents, they received nicotine replacement therapy. So if we look at the data, like there is a decrease in smoking rates from 31% in 2003 to 21.5% in 2013 and 14 in Haldimand and Norfolk counties.
So Sandy and Robert vaccinated all 3 children with publicly funded vaccinations. As some of you know, having a young family, was a very busy time for Sandy and Robert. And despite how busy they were on the farm, they still made time to make sure that their children received their childhood immunizations. They wanted to ensure their children were protected from serious diseases for the first 0 to 6 years of life. Anita, Jacob, and Bobby received their first vaccines from age 0 to 6 at their healthcare provider's office. The vaccines the children received were vaccines such as diphtheria, polio, chickenpox, pertussis, etc. While Sandy was at the doctor's office with Bobby to receive the vaccination, she noticed that the nurse practitioner was grabbing the vaccines out of the fridge. The nurse practitioner explained that vaccines have to be kept cold in the fridge for them to remain effective. This is called the cold chain system. Since the doctor's office does not have the facilities to keep a large amount of vaccine, the health unit supplies the vaccines to the physician's office on a regular basis. So some highlights are that something quite unique that I think most people don't realize is that the health unit is the gatekeeper, so to speak, of publicly funded vaccines in our counties, and we supply vaccines to 36 physicians' offices within the county. As well, we hold on average about $200,000 to $450,000 worth of vaccine in our 3 fridges at any one time. And I can speak from personal experience that nothing breaks me out in a cold sweat more when I'm on call than the thought of a fridge failure or alarm going off at the health unit. Even though we do have these protocols and procedures in place for when something like that happens, we do have to report any wastage, and it is a huge loss of money that we would have to then report back to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. We also conduct annual fridge inspections at all community-approved vaccine holding sites, such as doctors' offices, pharmacies, hospitals, or emergency rooms. And on average, our staff conduct about 100 of these types of inspections.
So how does it look like growing up in Heldinor family? Heldinor family enjoys the outdoor and utilizes the trail and parks which are offered in Norfolk and Haldimand counties. Jacob loves the outdoors, however, with asthma, it can be challenging at times. Sandy was relieved to learn that all parks and playgrounds were smoke-free with signs posted to ensure compliance. Robert was also very relieved because the smell of cigarettes is always a trigger for him. Staying smoke-free takes a lot of effort, and he has found that working, living, and playing in supportive smoke-free environment certainly helps.
Hunting and fishing is a favorite pastime, especially of Jacob's. He's well aware of the mosquito surveillance program at the health unit and the prevalence of ticks in our area. Jacob is your typical teenage boy. He loves learning about bugs and insects, and ever since the day he came home after a day out hunting and he found a tick embedded in his back. Adult deer ticks are known transmitters of the bacteria which causes Lyme disease, and they're most active in the spring and fall. You can find these types of ticks in areas such as, forested areas, areas where there's tall grasses, in ditches or wood piles, or even in your own backyard. After hearing about the health unit's active tick surveillance program, Jacob called the health unit to find out what he should be doing with the tick. He spoke to a public health inspector who spoke with him in regards to how to identify if it was a black-legged tick. He asked if the tick was engorged, and he also described the early symptoms of Lyme disease. Based on Jacob's description, staff advised Jacob to follow up with his local doctor, which he did. And the doctor, also believing that the tick was an engorged deer tick and learning that it was from an endemic area, prescribed a prophylactic dose of antibiotics. The doctor also sent the tick away for testing, and fortunately for Jacob, months later we found out that the tick was negative for the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. Since that occurrence, his family are cautious when outdoors and follow the guidance from the health unit on how to protect themselves. Now Jacob stays aware of the new risk areas that are identified by the health unit's active tick surveillance program before he goes out and decides where he's going to hunt. As a typical farm family, they spend lots of time outdoors, and both Jacob and his family were interested in hearing about that there were positive mosquito pools found in Haldimand and Norfolk counties last year. He also heard on the radio about the recent eastern equine encephalitis activity in Haldimand this past summer. They called their vet to ensure that their horses were vaccinated for both EEV, which is Eastern Equine Encephalitis virus, and West Nile virus, as both of these viruses are mosquito-borne viruses. We monitor for these viruses with mosquito trapping that's conducted between June and September. Our staff continue to provide education about prevention and control measures for both West Nile virus and Lyme disease via media releases, social media releases, and presentations for groups. We also communicate information to healthcare providers via what we call healthcare provider memos. So some highlights. During the spring of last year, staff collected over 72 deer ticks from areas in Haldimand and Norfolk counties through its active tick surveillance program. So of the 72 deer ticks that were collected, 23 tested positive for the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. Additional ticks were also collected in the fall of 2018, and we're still waiting lab confirmation on those ticks. In 2018, 5 mosquito pools tested positive for West Nile virus, 2 in Caledonia, 1 in each of Simcoe, Dunville, and Caledonia. 2 in Cayuga, and 1 in each of Simcoe, Dunville, and Caledonia. No pools tested positive for EEV. In 2018, Haldimand Norfolk Health Unit had 6 human cases of West Nile virus, and 1 death was reported as a result of the virus. We live on a farm, and both myself and my fiance, we love the outdoors as much as Jacob. In the past few years, I've pulled a number of ticks out of my fiance's back, so I guess I'm getting quite skilled at this with him. If you could look into your yellow folder and open it up. This is the one that says Health Protection. Inside, you're going to find a little green pouch. If you want to open this up, this is something that we hand out to the public, and I myself have found this very useful. Inside, you'll find a little magnifying glass, which is great for those of us who are having difficulty seeing at our age. This will help you to identify if it is a black-legged tick. As well, inside, you'll find a little card. This is an identification card that'll actually describe if it's a black-legged tick, so you can look at that. And then also inside this pouch is what we call a tick key, which can be used to help remove ticks. Other items which I also find useful is this TikTok pamphlet. Within this pamphlet, it also has some great photos of a deer tick versus a dog tick so that you can use this for identifying ticks, along with some of the symptoms of Lyme disease. And then on the back, it has information on how to remove ticks using a pair of tweezers, which has been my preferred method when I've done this. The final piece of information that we have, which we also give out to residents, is what we call our tick shower card. It identifies when you're taking a shower what areas to look for if you've come in from the outdoors to check for ticks. So both Haldeman and Norfolk counties are well known for their many special events during the year. With this family, special events are an important aspect, and they're never missed. So some of the special events they attend would be things like the Norfolk County Fair, Waterford Pumpkin Fest, Dunn Mills Mud Fest. It's a family tradition, and the whole family attend, and they enjoy attending and going and seeing the food vendors, as well as all the exhibits at the various fairs. Extracurricular activities for all 3 kids include swimming lessons and school sports. The family enjoys going out on a friend's boat for the afternoon fishing down in either Long Point or Turkey Point. And Sandy and Robert felt that it was important for their children to have good swimming skills. All 3 kids learn to swim at county-run facilities. Our inspection staff inspect public pools, spas, splash pads, and wading pools. And they also conduct outbreak investigations and follow up on public complaints to ensure that there's compliance with the legislation.
So all the 3 kids, they attended childcare where healthy food choices and safe plays available. Sandy decided to go back to work part-time after her second child was born. She wanted to ensure her children would be well taken care of when she was working. She checked to see if healthy food choices they were offered and whether policies were in place for safe play and falls prevention. The child care center assured her that she had worked with a public health dietitian and health promoter. Sandy is a stay-at-home mom, but after her second child was born, she has worked part-time outside of the home. At that time, she utilized a local child care facility for both her children so that she could continue with her career. Sandy chose the child care setting where they offered a menu with healthy food choices and had a policy for safe play. So this is where our public health nurses and our dietitians, they are working with the child care settings to develop healthy menus. So if you look at your bag, there is a green pouch in it. So I want you to open that. Inside that, you have 3 choices. have a chocolate, we have an arrow chocolate, we have a granola bar, and we have a banana. We all have kids, right? So what do you think a typical child would like to have? Chocolate, of course, right? But this is not healthy because if I go into more details, it has more sugar, it has more sodium. Same goes for this granola bar. So this is where our dietitians, they are working with the child care settings because in child care settings, like the children, they are spending 6 to 8 hours to have healthy menus for them. So it's getting late. At the end of the day, it's your choice, your preference, and please free to eat if you like to. Thank you.
Our staff, keeping on the theme of child care facilities, our staff over in health protection also inspect these facilities to ensure safe food handling as well as proper infection prevention and control practices are in place to reduce and minimize the risk and spread of illness among staff and children. Okay, our staff assessed, processed, and consulted vendors for 854 special event applications. In 2018, 77 recreational water facilities, so these are public pools, hot tubs, spray and splash pads, were inspected. And for child care facilities, 31 infection prevention and control inspections were conducted, as well as 76 child care nourishment program inspections.
Now preparation for entry to school. Bobby. Sandy noticed that Bobby, the youngest, was not using as many words as his brother and sister did at age 2. When Sandy brought Bobby for his checkup with their family doctor at age 2, she mentioned he doesn't have many words and that she was getting worried about his language development. The family doctor recommended that Sandy contact the health unit's preschool speech and language program. Bobby received an initial assessment and it was diagnosed that he had a mild language delay. Sandy and Robert attended parent training sessions with a speech and language pathologist, and it was found that Bobby needed some additional intervention to improve sound production. He attended group sessions called wordplay and sound play. Bobby parents continued to work with him at home and he made great improvements. Bobby was discharged from the program at age 4 because his speech and language skills had improved to be within normal limits for his age. Sandy and Robert registered Bobby for junior kindergarten online. At the school orientation, they received a package from the health unit that includes information about how to report the required immunization, the health unit's free dental program, and the importance of sleep and healthy foods for young learners. They noticed that there have been many changes since Anita and Jacob started school. Sandy realizes that Bobby's immunization have not yet been reported to the health unit. She followed the instructions to report them online through the health unit's website. So some of the highlights for 2018, we had 139 preschool speech and language program assessments and 428 infant hearing screens. So now they are ready to go into elementary school. Bobby. In senior kindergarten, Bobby will receive vision screening, which is a new program. It's a new program that will be implemented for the first time this year. It has been identified that 6 out of 10 children, they are experiencing reading difficulties that have uncorrected or undetected vision problems. And almost 25% of school-age children, they have vision problems. Bobby will learn about positive mental health and emotional regulation in grade 2. In the past, when Jacob, grade 2 teacher, was noticing Jacob having some struggles controlling his emotions and behaviors in the classroom, the teacher had recently received some training at a staff meeting from the health unit school team about Mind Up. That is a program that helps students understand how their brain works and teaches simple mindful activities and strategies that can use in a classroom to promote positive mental health and help students regulate their emotions. In collaboration with the school's child and youth worker, a public health nurse helped the teacher launch the Mind Up program in Jacob's classroom, plus students were able to take strategies that learn home to to use in those stressful everyday situations?
So both Anita and Jacob received immunizations in grade 7. In grade 7, both Anita and Jacob had their first encounter with the vaccine preventable disease team from the health unit during immunization clinics at the schools. The immunization program provides students with hepatitis B, HPV, which is human papillomavirus, and meningitis vaccines. Sandy and Robert were grateful that the health unit offers this service at the school, as they had previously received a letter about Jacob when he was in grade 2, saying that his immunization records were not up to date. This letter was sent as part of the Immunization of the School Pupils Act. Jacob was at risk of being suspended from school, but more importantly, he was at risk from not being adequately protected from vaccine-preventable diseases.
Anita and Jacob, they received dental screening in junior kindergarten, senior kindergarten, and grade 2 and free preventive dental care at the health unit. Their school is classified at a high risk for oral health because the health unit found that the greater than 14% of grade 2 students, they have dental caries or decay. They also happen to live in an area that doesn't have fluoridated water, so the health unit started to apply fluoride varnish to all children in school twice per year. When Jacob was in grade 4, Sandy and Robert received a letter from the health unit saying that he had some visible cavities that required dental treatment. Sandy called the health unit because as farmers, they don't have any health or dental insurance. It also happened to be a tough year for the farm because of the drought, so they didn't make as much as money on their crops as they typically would. Sandy and Robert were worried about how they would pay for Jacob to see the dentist and put food on the table. A dental hygienist from the health unit told Sandy about the Healthy Smiles Ontario program. It's a free dental program for eligible families to access ongoing preventive and restorative dental services. The dental hygienist assisted Sandy to enroll Jacob in a program, and he was able to get all of his dental treatments covered for free. The dental hygienist also invited Sandy to bring all of her children to the preventive dental clinic at the health unit where they received regular teeth cleanings. So some of highlights for our programs. Up to September 2018, the health unit completed 3,234 dental screens.
And 40 elementary schools within our counties. There was approximately 750 children immunized each year in grade 7, and the compliance rates for the hepatitis B vaccine were 65%. The HPV vaccine, which is the human papillomavirus, was 54%, and meningitis was 70%. Okay, now we're in high school. Through the school, Anita and Jacob became aware of the services that we offered through the sexual health clinic. At high school, Anita learned about chlamydia for the first time. As many teens do, even though we don't want to think about our children doing this, she became sexually active in her final year of high school. She had learned in high school about the health unit's sexual health clinic and how they offer sexual transmitted infection testing. From the appointment at the health unit, Anita found out that she had tested positive for chlamydia, and she did have to return back to the health unit for treatment. It was during that appointment the public health nurse asked Anita about her sexual health partners over the past 6 months, as they would also need to be contacted for follow-up and testing. Although some may think that this was a really negative experience for Anita, it was through this experience and her interaction with public health that Anita became interested in a career in public health and has decided to pursue a career in public health nursing when she went off to university.
So Sandy has been worried about Jacob's transitions to high school. He came home drunk one night, and when she tried talking to him, he shut down. The next morning, when she was doing laundry, she found a small amount of cannabis in his jean jacket. Sandy went online to the health unit's website, and as parent resources were talking with teens about drugs. She found that resources helpful to get a more productive conversation going with Jacob about reducing his harms. So some of the stats for cannabis. In our both counties, Haldimand and Norfolk, 48.6% of the males, they used cannabis once in their lifetime as compared to 45.4% Ontario males. And 21.3% of youth in Ontario, they have used cannabis in the last 12 months and its use increased with increasing age and grade.
So some of the sexual health clinic stats for 2017, there were 807 sexual health clinic visits, and approximately 209 of those visits was to see the nurse practitioner. 184 chlamydia cases were managed for case and contacts, and 26 gonorrhea cases were managed for cases and contacts as well.
So now their first jobs. Anita's first job was a test shopper with Smoke-Free Ontario. Anita has always been in awe of her father's ability to quit smoking. She vividly remembers the sight and smell of him smoking cigarettes when she was younger. While at first she used to fantasize about smoking, once her brother was born and her dad explained how his smoking was harmful to the whole family, she desperately wanted him to quit. His success was so impactful on her that it's no surprise Anita's first job was with the health unit as a test shopper for the tobacco enforcement program. She worked a couple of nights a week with the tobacco enforcement officers and the odd weekend attempting to purchase tobacco and e-cigarettes product without ID. Anita worked within this program for 3 years until her 18th birthday.
So Jacob works part-time at a local restaurant. Jacob is a hard worker both on the farm and off the farm. His motto is work hard and play harder. He enjoys earning extra money so that he can buy more fishing and hunting equipment, as well as he's saving up for a used truck. He actually enjoys cooking, and he's really good at it at home, and he actually teases his siblings, saying that he's the master chef. A year ago, when he started working part-time at one of the local restaurants, he was working in the kitchen on the prep line. His boss asked that he take the food handler training course with the health unit so he would learn about the regulations and safe food handling. Jacob passed the course and received his food handler certificate. This past summer was Jacob's first encounter with a public health inspector when the inspector was in conducting a routine compliance inspection. As he had taken the food handler course, he knew that the public health inspector was there to ensure safe food handling practices were being followed. And because he had taken the course, he felt confident and ready for the inspector to ask him any questions. Now, in my experiences within the field as a public health inspector, it is important for staff to understand the regulations and so that they have some of that background and rationale about safe food handling practices. Back in the day when I was back in university, and I won't say when that was, the government at that time was actually speaking about opening up the regulations at that time so that food handler training would be mandatory, as it was recognized as it was so important for safe food handling at a food premise. I'm pleased that finally, with the new regulation that came into force last July, there is a requirement for a certified food handler on site for every hour a food premise is in operation.
So some of highlights for our Smoke-Free Ontario Act inspections, we completed 429 inspections in 2018, and the compliance rate for vendors with youth access legislation, that is 96.8%.
And in 2018, a total of 615 food handlers were certified. 438 food handlers were trained and certified by a public health inspector, and 177 food handlers were trained and certified by an agent whose curriculum is endorsed by the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. So that would be a participating high school or Fanshawe College.
So now in post-secondary, Anita attends university out of the area and lives in residence. Anita is in her first year of university, and although it's happy to be away at school, she has realized how much she misses family and home. She comes home as often as she can to visit and attend special events such as Norfolk County Fair or Pumpkin Festival to be with both friends and family. After living in the city with access to public transportation, she's thankful for the areas in Norfolk that have safe trails and bike racks to support her primary mode of transportation back home. Anita and her friends have been binge drinking on Fridays and weekends. She shared this with her aunt, and she's worried about the amount of alcohol she's consuming.
While home at Christmas, Anita received her first tattoo. During her break at Christmas, Anita decided to get her first tattoo. Her mom and dad don't understand why, but it's something that she's always wanted to do. Before booking her appointment, she went online and reviewed the health unit's latest inspections of the tattoo parlor where she wanted to go for her tattoo. She was happy to not find any reports of an infection prevention and control lapse because she had once heard of a tattoo parlor in a nearby city where the health unit had to advise a number of people who had received a tattoo from the establishment to be tested for HIV, hepatitis B, C, and this was due to inadequate sterilization processes within the establishment. Our staff inspect personal service settings such as tattoo parlors, barbershops, nail salons, and similar establishments, and these inspections are conducted to review proper infection control practices. So some highlights. In 2018, 89 personal service settings were inspected. In 2019, inspections at tattoo parlors will be increased from once per year to twice per year.
And 66% of Haldimand and Norfolk residents aged 19 years and older, they are regular drinkers. Self-reported heavy drinking rates in Haldimand and Norfolk is 19.8% as compared to 16.6% in Ontario. Heavy drinking increases from 17.7% in 2011-12 to 19.8% in 2013 and 14 among adults.
So now we're on the farm. The farm is both a residence for the family and a business operation. Water from the home is supplied by a well on the property, and they have farm animals which include cows, chickens, dogs, cats, things like that. The family listens to the local radio stations and heard the health unit radio ads about testing their well water. They pick up water bottles at the health unit and test their well water 2 to 3 times per year as recommended. They drop the water sample back at the health unit, and the test results are mailed to them from the public health lab. It's free and it's easy to do, and Sandy says it gives her peace of mind to know that her family and her animals are drinking safe water. They also have a bunkhouse on the farm which houses seasonal workers. To obtain workers from other countries, each year they request to have a public health inspector come out and inspect their bunkhouse. The inspection is to ensure there are proper infection control measures in place, that there is safe drinking water, and that there is no additional health hazards that could affect the workers. This past year, there were new federal requirements to obtain migrant workers, and this resulted in most bunkhouses needing an additional inspection. Sandy and Robert make sure that they review the migrant housing guidelines, and I've included that. If you go to your yellow packages, I've included a copy of the migrant seasonal farm worker guidelines. So they appreciate that we send this package out each year so that they're prepared and ready for the inspection to go smoothly. A second family farm at Haldimand County has a cistern used for their drinking water. So Sandy and Robert, they live on the main family farm in Norfolk County, and Robert's brother lives on the second farm in Haldimand County. He also receives a seasonal housing inspection on that site, and he has a cistern on his property. In 2017, the family was very pleased to see the launch of the drinking water hauler inspection program, and they check for the inspected sticker when they're receiving water from a water haulage vehicle. The sticker indicates that the truck has been inspected by the health unit, as well as the year that the next inspection is due. And within your packages, this is a copy of what this sticker looks like. And the water haulage vehicles will post this on their truck once they've been inspected. Okay, some highlights. With changes to the migrant farm worker program made at the federal level, the health unit has seen a noticeable increase in seasonal housing inspections. In 2017, there were 497 seasonal housing inspections that were conducted, and in 2018, 643 seasonal housing inspections were completed. There are 30 water haulage vehicles in Haldimand and Norfolk counties, and their current inspections are available on the Health Unit website. And I'd also like to say I'm especially proud of the partnership that has been established between both Haldeman and Norfolk municipalities to ensure that water haulage vehicles receive a yearly inspection as part of their water purchasing agreements. So now, what about Grandma? The family has enjoyed having Grandma live so close to them on the farm. They know that they're really fortunate to have had this time with her. After Robert's father passed away about 5 years ago, it has been difficult for his mom, and he's noticed that her health has been deteriorating. Recently, Grandma was taken to the Norfolk General Hospital ER to evaluate heart palpitations. She was treated with medications, and then she was sent home. The emergency room doctor suggested that she receive pneumonia immunization from her family doctor. Jointly, the family made the decision that Grandma should move into a long-term care home so that she can receive the supports that she needs. Once they made this difficult decision to move Grandma into a long-term care facility, they visited some of the local homes for the elderly to ensure that they picked a home that was the right fit. Before their orientation visit to Norview, Sandy and Robert received a phone call canceling their visit due to a flu outbreak at the home. While Sandy and Robert were initially worried, the person on the phone assured them that they were following outbreak procedures, and this comforted them. The family were also grateful that they had received their flu shot this year. Recently, Grandma has moved to Norview Lodge, and she's being proactive in her afterlife plans. So despite the first visit to Norview being canceled, Grandma and Robert and Sandy were impressed with the way that Norview has handled the situation and chose that facility for Grandma's new home. After Grandma moved into Norview, she has been active in discussing her funeral arrangements, as they had not been so proactive when her husband had passed away. As such, Grandma and her sons have visited the local funeral establishments to plan the details for her celebration of life. It was surprising during one of the conversations that she was having with one of the funeral directors that the health unit actually inspects these facilities on a yearly basis in order for the home to receive its licensing. Again, this is another area where I feel that many people don't realize that infection prevention and control is important when handling and embalming those deceased. So some of the highlights. Vaccination is something that happens not only in childhood and young adulthood, but in maturity. And that there were 14 funeral home inspections that were occurred last year. So some other times when public health has impacted the Haldener family. So Anita was bit by a dog a few years ago. Anita has a fear of dogs. A few years ago, she was bitten on the face by a dog. The dog owner was a friend of the neighbor who was visiting from Hamilton. The dog wasn't comfortable with strangers and ended up biting Anita when she put her face too close to the dog to say hello. She had to receive stitches on her face, and she still carries that scar as well as a fear of dogs. The health unit was involved with the incident as the hospital reported this to the health unit. It was a stressful situation as the dog and owner had returned to Hamilton. The public health inspector needed to track down the dog owner to ensure that the animal was confined and placed under observation for rabies. Given the current raccoon rabies outbreak in Haldeman and Norfolk, along with many of our neighboring counties, ensuring animals do not transmit the fatal rabies virus at the time of the bite was more important than ever. At one point, they were not even sure if the dog had been disposed of. Our staff worked with the Hamilton Health Department to locate the dog and ensure that the dog was placed under observation. At the end of the observation period, the public health inspector from Hamilton contacted our staff to inform them that rabies transmission could be ruled out and the animal was healthy and fine. Our staff then called Anita to inform her the same information. Anita was relieved as she was worried about rabies, especially knowing that there was a rabies outbreak going on in Hamilton. Anita asked about her cat's vaccination and was concerned about the high cost. The public health inspector informed her that the health unit partners with our local veterinarians to advertise low-cost clinics and that there was one coming up within the next month. Their neighbor has an abandoned gas well on their property, which was recently capped as it was leaking hydrogen sulfide gas. So most recently, the family had been concerned with gas wells that are really very common in both Haldeman and Norfolk counties. Recently, the family's neighbor discovered a gas well on their property. You could smell that it was a gas well as there was that rotten egg odor as you were walking towards it. The neighbor called the health unit to report this. The health inspector collected some details about the well and asked the neighbor if anyone was experiencing any symptoms of hydrogen sulfide exposure, such as irritation to the eyes, nose, or throat, or whether they were having difficulty breathing. Fortunately, no one was ill. The health inspector then provided them with the Spills Action Center number to put the concern on record and for the regulating bodies of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks to be notified of the potential leaking gas well. They also advised the family to seek medical attention if anyone was experiencing any symptoms. The inspectors also followed up and called Spills Action and the Ministry of Natural Resources. So for family celebrations, the family often attends local restaurants. Food surrounds us. When we think about special events, or even the recent holiday, most of the time that we spent with friends and family was surrounded by food. The Haldener family is no exception to this. As Mom is always at home and she's cooking those homemade meals, she likes a break every once in a while. After a long week, the Haldener family wanted to head into town to celebrate Grandma's birthday. As the family was trying to decide where to go, Anita informed them that the health unit is now posting public health inspection results on their website. She said they could search the website to see the restaurant inspection results before going. After going to the new website called Inspect Our Community, they saw that their favorite restaurant had no infractions noted at the time of the last inspection. They had a lovely time enjoying the evening and celebrating her birthday. So also within your package, you will find a draft copy of this certificate of inspection. Not only are inspection results posted online on our new website, you'll also see the certificate of inspection that's posted in a visible area within any of the establishments that we inspect. It also, on this, it'll say the name of the premise, the address, the date of the inspection, and whether or not it was a re-inspection. So some highlights. In 2018, there were 419 rabies investigations that were conducted. In 2018, 5 raccoons tested positive for rabies, 4 in Haldeman and 1 in Norfolk. And in 2018, public health inspectors conducted 1,116 food safety inspections, and those exclude special events.
So as final thoughts, we hope that you have enjoyed our story about this typical family living in our county and how the various programs and services provided by the public health affect our residents on a daily basis throughout the span of their lives. Health protection and health promotion, they are the two sides of a same coin, but equally important and melding together within the services we provide. Both are equally essential, even from before the birth, throughout the span of your lifetime until death. Public health is present, affecting your life, working away silently in the background. With this, I would like to ask my colleague, Mr. Okoronko, please.
Thank you very much, the chair and members of the board. I would play a short video which will try and talk about what are the return on investment when we invest in public health. I'm going to try to do that, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Yeah. Okay. That was too quick, huh? Should I try again?
Sorry, if it's off of YouTube, it won't work because our corporate policy requires an exemption for each computer that runs YouTube, so I wasn't aware that you were putting a video with YouTube in it.
Okay. to the chair. So, oh, moving, okay. So basically, what the video tries to demonstrate is just to be able to show that when we put for every cent or any dollar we put in as an investment in public health, is try to demonstrate what's the return on that investment. So just as a quick example, and my colleagues have used that when we invest in harm reduction, what kind of return do we get on an investment in harm reduction? We get returns which around the parts of fewer cases of HIV/AIDS, fewer cases of Hep C, and these conditions cost quite a lot to treat. But when we just put $1 in harm reduction, we are looking at down the road what kind of investment it would have when it comes to the rates of HIV and Hep C. I think we're ready to go now. Are we good? Okay, I do apologize. We've not been able to get the video to play. Hopefully we'll find other methods to send the link to you. But if the video had played, I just wanted to go through the next two slides, which will talk about the impact of investment locally. My colleagues have been able to allude to a number of programs that we deliver. I'm just going to highlight some of the successes, and there are a few failures we've experienced in those programs. My colleagues alluded to the fact that the family we walked through, Robert was a former smoker, and based on the data we have, the percentage of adult former smokers has increased from 43% in 2009-2010 to 49% in 2013 and 2014. Also, Sandy, who is the mom, breastfed her kids, and in 2016, the data we have demonstrates that 35% of mothers were exclusively breastfeeding their babies during the first 2 months. Then equally, we have a number of programs that work at the school level, elementary school level, and high school level. For the past 5 years, our dental screening, average dental screening proportion, it's 7% of children in JK, SK, and grade 1 students were dentally screened. These are children in publicly funded schools. Also, you would notice that our 7 and 8-year-old in compliance with ISPA had increased from 63% in the 2015-2016 school year to 91% in the 2016-2017 school year. That's a good success story from our point of view. Also, in the 2016-2017 school year, the percentage of school-age children that received the vaccine for meningococcal was 70%. Continuing to the second slide, Anita did get her first job, based on the story we're following. I got her first job as a test shopper. In 2018, 97% of tobacco vendors were in compliance with the youth access legislation. And Anita, as a test shopper, will have helped us in testing this compliance among the tobacco vendors. Also, Jacob has received his food handler certificate. In 2017, 46% of restaurants that were inspected had a trained food handler. So that provides some confidence for us when we do visit those restaurants. Anita also got her first tattoo. She can be rest assured that in 2017, 98% of those personal service settings were inspected to ensure that they are compliant with in things like infection control and ensuring that everything works well. Now, there are some areas where we haven't done as well as we would have hoped. That one of those areas is when it comes to the number of fall related ED visits for older adults. We have found that this has been increasing from 6,261 in 2011 to 6,563 in 2016. So this is an area we continue to work and to see if there are some improvements we can make there. We just want to highlight that, as we have our successes, we equally have those, we have some areas where we are having some challenges. So with that, I guess me and my colleagues will be open to any questions the board members may have about our presentation as well.
Thank you, and we'll conclude with that, and I do apologize for the technology glitch. We would be more than happy to send out the video. It's only about 2 minutes via the link to your email for your viewing privilege. I hope your time with us has been productive and informative, and I thank you for your time and attention. And we do invite each and every one of you to meet with us if you have any further questions or any questions that you may have, and we'd like to open the floor for any questions to the team.
Member Martin.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, I'm wondering, I have three questions. I'm wondering if you could shed some light on plans to move forward regarding ticks here in Norfolk County. Do you have any other additional plans or funding set aside outside of the traditional signage and education methods that you have been working on?
So I'm going to ask Ms. Pongratz to answer that question.
Hi there. So last year, as you know, we moved from passive surveillance, which is basically when people would just bring in ticks to the health unit, to active surveillance this year. And so that was our first year where we have done some what we call tick dragging, both in the spring and within the fall. This year, we'll continue with the active surveillance because it does identify new risk areas, which go onto the map, which is used by healthcare providers when they're diagnosing Lyme disease. So we'll continue with that. And we'll continue with, there are some new, I would say, provisions within some of the information that we've received from the ministry on further education for in schools. But we haven't actually set the plan in place, and we will be delivering a report to council. I believe it's coming in March.
Thank you. You spoke about the food handlers course. You also mentioned kind of in the same sentence there about post-secondary education. I wondered if what the cost was associated with a program like that. Where does the funding go? Similarly with other programs similar to food handler, are those funds put through the department, and then if so, what happens with them or not?
So there is a cost for the food handler training course. This is a provincial course that the ministry provides us with, so the certification is good for 5 years for anybody who takes the course. We don't, sorry, the second part of your question was in regard to what we would do with those funds?
Or any other program that maybe isn't provincially mandated.
Yeah, it's a cost recovery then. Yeah, because it does cost to print out any of the materials, to print out any of the certificates. You know, I didn't bring with me one of our food handler training manuals, but it's quite large, and it does cost a significant amount of money when we purchase a number of them.
Okay, and then lastly, you spoke about a variety of different animals, and I'm wondering about, I have a lot of emails come in about wildlife in Port Dover, specifically as it relates to coyotes. Mm-hmm. Are there any plans